Hey everybody, and welcome back to another lecture with Coding with Roby. In this lecture, we're going to enhance our to-dos table so that we can relate that to-dos table to a new users table and create a relationship from the users table to the to-do table using primary keys and foreign keys. This will allow us that when we create users, a user can now have a primary key that identifies itself to a to-do table as the foreign key. So that means each to-do record will have a type of user attached to it. To do this, the first thing we need to do is drop our tables from SQLite. So our to-dos table that we've been working on, we're just going to drop it, which means completely delete it because we're going to enhance it. So from here, I'm going to SQLite 3 into our todos.db. And inside here, I'm going to say .schema. Now we can see our table. However, we need to add a new column to our to-dos to now allow us to have a relationship to a users. So I'm going to completely delete this. You can completely delete the table to-dos by typing in drop table to-dos. If we do this and now do .schema, we can see nothing shows up because the table of to-dos no longer exists. We can close out of SQLite by saying .quit, and now I'm going to just minimize our terminal. Let's now jump into our models.py file, and inside here, right above to-dos, let's create a new class called users, which extends base. Under here, we need to create a new tables name, just like we did with to-dos, but this table name is going to be equal to users. And here we need to now create an ID, which is going to be the primary key for a user, an email for the user, a first name, a last name, a username, a hash password, and finally, is the user active? I'm going to start by saying ID equals column, which as a parameter, we're going to say integer primary key is true and index is equal to true. We're going to say email, which is equal to column, with parameters as a string. Unique is going to be equal to true, so only one user can be registered to an email with an index of true. A username, which is equal to column, again as a string, unique true, as usernames need to be unique and by themselves to each user with an index of true. A first name, which is equal to column as a string. Last name, which is equal to column as a string. Hashed password, which is equal to column and string. And a hashed password is not just a normal password. A hash password is using some type of encryption to save an encrypted password that cannot be reversed onto the database. This means that if the database records get stolen and a user loses their hashed password, the hacker will not be able to identify what the hashed password is. And is active, which is equal to column Boolean default true. And now we need to create a relationship from our users to our to-dos and our to-dos back up to our users. We can do this by passing in a new import from SQLAlchemy.orm, and this import is going to be called relationship. We also need to import a new element from SQL Alchemy called foreign key. Now, a primary key is how you identify a specific record in a specific table. A foreign key is how you assign a specific element to a record so you can find what table is connected to what table. So for example, a to-do may have a last column of user ID, which might be 3, which matches up with the primary key of 3 within the user's table. Now right under is active, we want to say to-dos equals relationship. And as the parameters, we want to say to-dos and back populates to owner. And we can remove these squiggly lines by just deleting these spaces. And for to-dos, we need to add a new column called owner ID, which is equal to column. And we're going to pass an integer, and the foreign key is equal to the user's ID. And lastly, we want to say owner equals relationship to users and back populates to to-dos. So let's go through this again. We have our class users, which is extends from base, table name, which is equal to users. We have an ID column, we have an email, we have a username, a first name, a last name, a hash password, and is active with relationship to to-dos. And then to-dos is an ID, which is equal to column and an integer as our primary key. We have a title, a description, a priority, a complete, and owner ID new column, which is a foreign key that tracks back to the user's ID. And owner equals relationship to users, which is the class, and back populates the to-dos. Let's save this file. We need to open up our terminal again and start up our server so our application will create the tables automatically. We can do this by saying unicorn main app reload. And now if we just end the application and we jump into our to-dos DB, we type in .schema, and we open this up, we can see we have 2 tables now within our database. We have a table for users, ID, email, username, first name, last name, hash password is active, and our primary key is our ID. And then we have a to-dos table, which is ID, title, description, priority, complete, owner ID. Primary key is ID, and the foreign key is our owner ID. This is awesome. We just created 2 tables, and one's going to be our to-dos that is enhanced, and one's going to store all of our users that we create. This wraps up this lecture on how to enhance our database tables to now properly work with users and create a relationship between users and to-dos. And I will see you in the next video.